So this is the project for Savage Remix. It's at 84.5 BPM, and this is a special one because this project is our first that's done in 10.5. It was started in 10.4.7 and it's finished in 10.5, and we've decided to make a live loops version on the left, integrate that into the project for you, and just to have a play around and see what live loops can do. It's pretty exciting. I'm going to use the Remix FX on the master bus, which is under multi-FX, Remix FX. This is best used with an iPad as a controller because you can use multi-touch, but I'm just going to use the mouse controller and just have some fun with it. So let's give it a go. I know live playing wasn't great, but just an example of what you could do on the live loops as a performance. So you can have your different layers, you can have different sort of sections playing within those scenes. So there's scene 1, which is like the intro. Scene 2 is when the drum beats all come in, and scene 3 is kind of like the bridge. And the remix FX is stuff that you can do to sort of remix it into a live performance. So very interesting times. And if you want to go back to the range window, just remove the live loops, click on this to bring all the arrangements back. And this is the original arrangement of the track, which you can hear just a little bit.
Want no smoke with me? Then turn this motherfucker up 800 degrees. Whole team eat chefs cause she's a treat. She's so bougie, on never teeth. I'm a savage, attitude nasty. Talk.
And this is the chorus.
Savage, classy, bougie, ratchet, sassy, nasty, acting stupid. What's happening? What's happening? Bitch, I'm a savage.
So that's the track, and let's get into how we created it. So let's start with the intro. It's pretty straightforward, the line. One thing to notice is that the piano, it's a really sort of this funky tuning, and it's a little bit out of tune, which kind of gives a lot of character to the piano. We emulated that by using Yamaha grand piano under acoustic pianos, grand piano. Sampler is the new EXS24, which you can access here. It's essentially very much like EXS24. It's kind of like a reskinned and rejigged EXS24. All these you can find in the original one as well. That's why it's still compatible. Now, just listen to this piano. And you can see that the pitch is kind of pushed a little bit off. But another interesting thing that we did was to map pitch to LFO1, which is this one, at a really slow rate, and just, push it a little bit to give it that slightly detuned kind of sound. And this side is also a Yamaha grand piano, but you can see this one's panned to the left a little bit, and this is another range of MIDI. Yeah, and you can see this one is a bit plonkier because what we did was we changed the amp envelope to just slightly shorter for the sort of decay, right? And so it's a bit plonkier. And then this one is straight up, you know, just, I don't think it's detuned. Oh yeah, it is detuned a little bit, pushed up a little bit to contrast this one. So they kind of both out of tune with each other. Just very slightly. And then this one is sort of an electric piano, which you can find in the sampler as well, on the EVP Quartz Bright. Yeah, just to add a little bit of plonkiness to it. And you can see that the intro is summed up into an intro sum. Like these guys are being sent into bus 2. So I want to show you two ways of actually handling groups of tracks. You can send all of these to a bus and add the bus onto a track. And in this case, we put a channel EQ, compressor, and a space designer on. And it's a really small space. It's just a drum booth 4. Just insert it into it. And this is a pretty much just a regular smooth compressor just to increase the levels a little bit. And the EQ. Let's remove the EQ, space design, and compressor and just hear the intro. It's just this instruments. You can tell it's really bright, so when we turn this on, makes it a bit darker, add the compressor for levels, and just that room sound. Yeah, so that's pretty much the intro, and let's get to the sort of loop section, right? And this is a great song to sort of use that looping thing, because this whole song is sort of built up upon loops, which is this is the piano. Let's have a listen. And these are Yamaha pianos as well with an EQ. This one's also an EQ with the hi-hat all taken off, right? And just have a listen to each one. Let's take this out. You can tell that this one's panned to the right, and this one's panned to the left. And you can tell that they're slightly detuned as well. This one has a pitch to LFO1 as well. Oh no, this one's straight. There's no pitching on this one. So this one, you can see that they're a group, and one's panned to the right and panned to the left. So what you can do is basically create a summing channel. So you can select one or more, and you can say, where is it? There is create track stack, right? Track stack allows you to create a folder stack or summing stack. I normally create a folder stack, which is this one, which allows me to process it. I put an EQ on top of that, so there's sort of like an EQ on top of these two, and this one becomes sort of one track, which you can open and close up. And you can see that these are sort of looped, right? 4-bar loops. In fact, they're kind of 1-bar loops that are looped 4 times as the pattern sort of goes. So it's like that, right? And for the whole piano sound, there's another one. It's a pretty straightforward one. It's a Steinway grand piano under acoustic pianos, and it's EQ'd with the high end kind of taken off, a little bit more bump on the lows. So it's meant to sit underneath. Yep. And then there's an EVP here, which is an electric piano, the Quartz Bright, the same one's in the intro here. And there's no processing, and it's just really soft. So it's kind of just adding a little plonkiness. There's a lot of harmonics going on in the original, so we wanted to create that kind of harmonic sound, the rich harmonics of it. And the next one is a vibraphone. You can find under Keyboards, Mallets, Rotary Vibraphone, and all we did was place the compressor on it. Pretty aggressive compressor. Just holding it there. And you know, when you put it together, so you can hear more layers come in. I reckon the original doesn't have so many layers, but it's the kind of texture that we wanted to create. So this one is a vintage B3 organ. You can find it here. And it's under the classic tone wheel organ preset with a bit of EQing off the low end. So, you know, like everything has kind of its own place to sit inside. This one is, yeah, just to add a little bit more harmonics. So it's meant to sound like this singular piano playing, although there are many layers to this. We could have created a track stack and sort of stacked all of this together as well, just to organize parts, and that's possible if you want to. Now, so that's the piano thing out of the way. Next thing we do is we have a bass line, and this bass line is a pretty straightforward one. It's actually a EXS24, or you could say a sampler one, and it's, let's have a listen. This one's probably just a sine wave. Yeah, that's right. It's a sine wave. So your typical like EXS24 without a sample loaded is a sine wave, and so it's kind of like a very subby sine wave. And what we did was we sent it through a pedal board. In this case, we use a Deluxe Dragon, which, because you can mix, and the original mix is more towards, it's 36% of the overdrive mixed in. So without it, it's this clean sine wave, very subby. So with it, you still get that sine wave, but on top of that, you get all these harmonics as well, which is what we wanted to get. So sitting on top of that. So it's this bass line that's just supporting everything else, not bringing too much attention to itself. Yeah, and that's it. And these are sort of like the bass fills. It's the same track, just created, just control return to create a sort of duplicate of that track. And yeah, and all these pink sections are the drums. So this one's pretty straightforward. Like with new drum machine and designer and sampler and all that, I think we could have been more organized in creating this, but this is one way to do it as well, and it's perfectly fine as long as you get the sound that you want. So it's a sampler track under electronic toms 8-inch tom D2, a little bit more low end, and you get a little bit of a fill here. Yeah, that's kind of just the fill. But let's get to the meat and bones of it, and let's find the kick. I believe this is the kick. Let's have a zoom in. Oh no, this one's the kick. Yeah. So on the sampler, you go to single drums, kicks, electronic kicks, C18. In this case, yep, here we have it. It is on C1, and that's it. And this section, the kick is slightly different. Yeah, we EQ'd off a little bit of the top end, just raise a little bit of the low end, just give it a bit more bass, a bit more punch to it. And yeah, that's kind of it. And you know, for the claps, we have an 808 Flex Kit, which you can find under Drums, Percussion, Electronic Drum Kits. 808 Flex Kit sounds like this. Pretty straightforward. It's just a clap on the 808, and then we combined it with a 909. So under Drums and Percussions, Electronic Drum Kits, there's a modern 909, and it's kind of another clap, right? And you can hear that they're flamming a little bit with each other, and that's because this one, although it's quantized to 1/16, there's a delay of 20 ticks, 1/192. So just a slight flam to give it a bit more clappiness. And I find that for claps, it's good to sort of delay a little bit to give that, you know, multi-clap sound. They're not all following exactly on the grid, and that helps a little bit. So you got your kick, you got your snares. That's the main section of the beat. This one is the hats, which is the next thing, which is under Drums and Percussions, Electronic Drum Kits, Modern 808. So we're just picking and mixing different sections. This one is the hats, And it's pretty straightforward. Yeah, so with the kicks and the claps. Yep, and with this section, just an extra sort of like percussive hat type thing, right? Yeah, in fact, if you didn't want to sort of have that lift, you could actually take them away. But I thought they added something. And this one's interesting because this one's that sort of like sticks, right? Digital sticks. And this one we use actually something that's not particularly an instrument. It's actually the utility cloth guys. Cloth guys is the instrument that creates the click that you hear while recording on the metronome. But we played it like a instrument. And I think it works perfectly. Just dipped a little bit of the sort of mid-highs to get rid of some resonances, and here's how it sounds. And that's pretty straightforward. And then the next thing we have is a crash. Very electronic, small crash. A little bit too small. This is under Drum Kit's Electro Kit. Ultra Beat you can find under here. And then, since it's a bit too small, but the texture's right, we layered another one underneath it. And it's a hip-hop remix kit. And it sounds like this. And we added a little bit of a sort of modulation under scanner vibrato to sort of give it this movement a little bit like this wobbly movement. So we put it together. Yeah, and you get your full drum kit. It's pretty straight up beat, and what I love about this track is you get a lot of very interesting, I don't know, the track is still interesting despite its repetition. It's all on the vocals and the rap, and the way you take away things and put back things. In this section here, there's a really small extra thing, which is sort of a sound design type thing, which we use sculpture for. Under both instruments, sci-fi mystery, it's just this one sound, one note. And yeah, it's sent to a reverb as well. In this case, it's a diffusion hall under medium spaces, 100% wet as usual. Yeah, and that's
Left cheek, right cheek, drop it low.
And there's a little sine wave here, so it's just basic pure sampler without a sample loaded user default. And there's some EQing to shape the sound a little bit, not too much low end, not too subby. And there's a stereo delay just right here, and some reverb as well. So it's just a very simple So, you can use some basic sine waves to shape your sound as well, because, in this case, the sound and the bass sound is actually just basic sine waves. And then there's an interesting section right here, which is the riff, which is the piano riff, but pitch shifted. So that's kind of the bridge.
Asking for the queen and bought some cameras in here.
So what we did was we bounced out the piano sections, which is the blue sections, into an audio file, and from that audio file we pitch shifted it. We added a pitch shifter, which you can find under pitch shifter, and the mix has to be 100% to get the full pitch shift mix. Otherwise you get a mix between the original pitch and the shifted pitch. So we go down by an octave and just a little bit more to give that detuned kind of sound. And then we have a compressor to sort of just make it a bit louder, and let's hear it without, right? So here's the riff. It's just the original one, and we pitch shift. Yeah, so that's
Asking for the queen and bought some
just the bridge, and going back and going back to the original. As you can see, there's two sound effects here. It's just gunshots. So it's kind of like,
now watch me pop up again.
and that you can find under gun under the loops, right? Yeah. So, this is a really straightforward one. It's fun, I think, to play around with the live loop section and just have a sort of go with this. Yes, I think it's opening up a lot of possibilities for what we can do with live loops. You can record a performance of that live loops into your timeline itself with all the automation of remix effects and stuff. It's a really exciting time with 10.5. I think we're going to create some pretty amazing works and see some pretty amazing works come out from there. So I hope you enjoyed this project. Happy creating.